think it's a great time to get started. Thank you so much for everyone coming. I just wanted to start off by saying good evening, everyone, or good morning if you're joining us from down under, like our two guest speakers today. My name is Odrana Isho. I am the Director of Events here at the Assyrian Policy Institute. And it is my great pleasure to be your moderator for today's event, during which we will be discussing the new award-winning Assyrian language short film Grace. Please note that today's discussion might not be spoiler-free, as we will be discussing the film and its making in great detail. If you have not watched it yet, you might want to do that first and then come on back here. You can get details on how you can stream the film right now at assyrianpolicy.org/webinar. Set in Mosul, Iraq in June 2014, Grace tells the story of an Assyrian father and his endeavor to protect his daughter from violent extremists in the early days of ISIS occupation by teaching her to play the innocent childhood game of hide and seek. In just 10 minutes, the film intricately captures so many aspects of the Assyrian struggle, all of them bound together by the overaching question facing Assyrians for decades. Do we flee for our lives, or do we remain in our historic homeland? The short film draws on director Brian Peto's true family stories from Iraq, in particular from Mosul in 2014. Under horrific persecution from ISIS, Brian's cousins were attacked at random, his home sprayed with bullets, killing his 5-year-old son instantly. And of course, this is sadly one story of many belonging to Assyrian families whose lives were destroyed and uprooted by ISIS and other forms of terrorism. Film is a powerful medium to raise awareness and change perspective. Character-driven stories, in particular, can generate a tremendous impact. Rather than approaching a topic in a very traditional way, film allows viewers to explore an issue using a more intimate lens that generates greater understanding. Such films can change the way we perceive certain realities by drawing us into characters, making us empathize with their stories in a way that may ultimately result in audiences changing their attitudes towards the subject matter. In this way, film is an important advocacy tool, and this is certainly the case for Grace. Since launching, Grace has been selected by dozens of international film festivals, collecting prestigious nominations and awards including Best Foreign Short, Best Director, and recognition for its cast. We are pleased to be joined today by two of the individuals behind the making of the film, Brian Peto and Dr. Darren McFarlane, who are both joining us today from Melbourne, Australia. Brian Peto is the director and writer of the film Grace. When he was 3 years old, Brian's family escaped Iraq during intensifying conflict with Iran under the ruthless Saddam Hussein regime. He has been involved in the film industry for some time now, directing and producing TV commercials for various popular brands and companies. Grace is his first short film, and what a way to make an entrance. Brian, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Dr. Darren McFarland is an established and accomplished producer who has produced and line-produced numerous TV series, web series, TV commercials, short films, and features. He is the co-founder of Disturbing Notions Productions, a production company based in Melbourne, through which he produced the film Grace. Dr. McFarland, we know you're very busy and appreciate you making the time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
I'd like to start by congratulating you both on such incredible work. The film is so well done and just absolutely stunning. I know I speak for many when I say it was moving and certainly stirred up some emotions, not only with how it ends, but the message it sends. But before we move into our discussion, I would like to remind our attendees that we will be accepting questions from the audience in the second part of our panel. For those of you who are joining us on Zoom, please submit your questions through our Q&A feature found at the bottom of the screen at any point during the event. If you're watching on Facebook Live, please leave your questions in the comment section and our chat monitors will be sure to get them to us. All right, with that said, Brian, this story largely revolves around your father teaching his daughter how to play the game of hide and seek as a way to protect her against extremism. Can you please tell us where this idea originated and what motivated you to tell the story?
Yeah, like you said, I think for me as a filmmaker, any story has to be, the best stories are personal stories, the stories that you could relate to, that you know in your heart, in your head, and that's naturally, that naturally comes out on screen. So I heard, about a family member of mine in Mosul, and like you said, what happened to him and his family, and basically it struck a chord. It hit me really deep, and what first thing I did was I went to my parents and said, I want to tell this story. This is an important story. I need to tell it. And I wrote the screenplay, and then basically my father said, look, out of respect, I wouldn't be telling the exact same story. Obviously, these are very traumatic experiences, so you've just got to be very sensitive with the way you kind of convey it and whatnot. So what I did was I used it as inspiration and put myself in that scenario. I said to myself, if I was in that scenario and the inevitable would happen, how would I protect my family? How would I protect my children? And we just had our daughter. Her name's Grace, which we named the film after. And what I did was I put myself in that world and said, if I were to protect Grace, how would I do it while maintaining her innocence? Because that's something that's really important to me. Children in that part of the world, in Iraq, or in that general, in the Middle East itself, they tend to grow very quickly. Their childhood almost snatched away from them. So it was important for me to be like, okay, if I need to protect her, I want to be able to maintain her innocence. And that idea of hide and seek came out, of teaching her the game of hide and seek, playing it, disguising it as something that's fun and doing it on a regular basis until it became automatic and almost annoying for her. But to use that as a tool for when the inevitable would happen, for her to go hide and seek refuge, in a sense. So I wrote the screenplay and then put it away because it wasn't really kind of clicking for me. In my head, it was a feature film. It was a 2-hour window, and I was trying to cram it into a short film in a 10-15 minute window. So I put it away and then kind of just moved on with life. And it was, for me, I'm a firm believer of you only really hit the green light when you're surrounded by creative people that are better than you in those fields. And I hadn't quite found the right team yet. So I used advertising to build that team, to work with people, to experience new things and really hone my craft, because I wasn't ready. I had the script there, but I just wasn't ready. I wasn't, equipped with the right skill sets and the right experience to really go after this story. So fast forward to 2020, and I had obviously met Darren, who I've worked with for many years now in advertising, and he and I very much click. It's quite often we speak, we just, the classic is you finish each other's sentences, we talk on top of each other. So, found him, and I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we're all sitting at home, and I called him and I said, I just want to make a movie. I got to make this movie. And he said, oh yeah, cool. What do you want to do? What have you got? And I sent him a script, which was very kind of Tarantino or Godfather-ish, and it had all these mafia things. Yeah. And he read it, and he was just like, what is this crap? Like, what are you trying to do? You told me that you were born in Iraq during a war. You escaped. Your mother was pregnant. You went through these horrendous conditions. You went to Turkey, stayed there, came to Australia, hit reset, had to learn a language. Your father started from scratch. All this stuff. That's a story. That's a story you want to tell. So when he was talking about it, I was just invigorated. I was like, it's a really complex story to tell, but it reminded me of Grace. So I said, oh, look, that's obviously a very, very big scale film that we're obviously not ready for, don't have the money for. How about this? And I sent in Grace, and I sent the script to 4 other people. And it's funny because when you send a script or an idea to your peers, and they all come back with "that's great," then you know that's BS. There's always something you can do to help, and So the 3 of them, came back with "that's great." One of them, Christopher, who's our lovely screenwriter and editor, read the script, and he came back with paragraphs worth of feedback. And I was like, oh, there's something interesting here. And he fed back, and I sent that to Darren as well. I'm just going to go Daz, because if I keep saying Darren, it's going to drive me nuts. So I sent it to Daz, and he he was like, these are all great points, so let's bring him on board. And anyway, so we brought Chris on board, and he helped shape it and narrow it down to one perspective, because it was really important for us to make sure that perspective was Grace's perspective. It was a little girl living in Mosul, viewing, experiencing this world around her. In addition to that as well, and we spoke a fair bit about whether it should be in English or whether it should be in Assyrian. It's native, and there was no question in my mind that it had to be in Assyrian. Like, you cannot tell this story in another language. It has to be this. It has to be our language. So we discussed that in fine detail, and then off we went.
And that's the key for us, is like, whenever working with Brian, the things as producer and director, we always go authenticity. It has to be authentic. We can't have the audience watching something and be pulled out of that story because it's in Arabic or Middle Eastern or whatever language. It has to be authentic, and it has to be real, because, this is a very dramatic story.
Well, it's very clear that Brian is deeply connected to this story through his heritage as well as his own experiences with his family. But my question is for Dr. McFarlane. What is it about this story that pulled you in and made you want to be a part of this film?
Well, for me, like, Patto and I have been for years talking about wanting to do short films, wanting to do features, wanting to do TV shows. And like Brian said, he sent me this original script, which was, it was a well-written script, but it was derivative of all of his favorite directors and films. And I said, look, we've just done a TV commercial over in South Australia, which is whoop-de-doo from here. And it's, we were talking about his family and the story of his family and the struggles of his parents, leaving everything they have spent their lifetime doing behind for the sake of their children, for the sake of their family, and risking everything to start a new life. And I said, dude, that is, like, such an incredible, powerful story. And so, Brian went back to his father and to his family, and then come back and said, look, I've got this short film, Grace. It's been sitting with me, and it's something I want to, let's do this. And as soon as I read the first draft, I was like, mate, this is a beautiful story. And, like, to do a short film in 11 minutes and have the classic arc of beginning, middle, and end is really difficult to do in a 10-minute. But Patto absolutely pulled it off with Christopher, the writer, to set this up, to instantly create this relationship between father and daughter, which, for me as a Westerner, I do not see many beautifully told stories about a father and a daughter from the Middle East. And instantly, the two actors we got pulled me into this incredible story. And I don't know how many times I've watched our film. Even now, I tear up at that final moment at the end. I'm tearing up thinking about it. It's such a powerful, passionate story for me. And I was instantly hooked, because, we want to humanize what's happening to people, the dislocation of the people. And for us as filmmakers, it's not words, it's pictures. And with these pictures, we're going to tell these stories, and we want to go from short film to feature film to TV series, because there's way too many stories to tell, but they need to be told. And that's why I got in.
Well, it certainly sounds like you two are the right individuals to be leading this film. I want to quickly take it back to the early days. My understanding is that Grace was filmed and produced during the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you tell us what challenges you faced as a result of the pandemic and ensuing lockdown that you wouldn't had to have faced in a normal year?
Well, the hardest part for us in the beginning was we're in lockdown, and I've got a director who wants to make a short film, and I'm sitting there going, well, first we've got to get cast, we've got to find a location, and in order to find a location requires us to go out looking for a location. So everything's done online. So we were casting online, we were searching for a location online, and I won't tell how Brian got this house, but it was a premonition from his godfather. So, Patto, how did we get the house?
It's how do we get the house? Well, I mean, just to start off, this was the most complex project I've ever been involved in. It was just, everything about it was a challenge, and again, it's testament to just surrounding yourself with the right team and the right people with the experiences and the passion and the drive. But with the location, it was interesting because the location for us was like, okay, well, we're in Melbourne. This story is set in Mosul, so it's not the easiest thing to execute. So I started off with talking to a whole bunch of family members in Mosul and getting photos and videos and really kind of visualizing what Mosul is like, and the infrastructure, the buildings, the color, the setting, all that type of stuff. That was the first thing that we did. So when I spoke to Daz,
which of course was an education to us, because as Westerners, all we thought was it's desert. It's all desert. And then Patto's showing us grassy gardens and grassy stuff. And so, you know, we were being educated on the realities of Mosul and Baghdad. We naively thought, oh, they got lawns? So,
yeah. So when I said to, spoke to Daz about it, and he's like, okay, well, look, we don't have the budget to go get a location scout, so we're going to have to do it. So Daz, spent hours just on the internet looking for these houses and trying to search for the right thing. And when we came to Australia in the early 90s, we grew up in a suburb called Fawkner, which is up in the north, and that's where a lot of our people migrated to. Anyway, so we were and the way you would normally do this with a proper budget is you would build a set. You'd build it from scratch in a sound stage, and that would be the best way to go about it. So anyway, I was like, oh God, we're now going to find this location. How do we do this? How are we going to do this? And then I was talking to my godfather, and we were just chatting, and he talking to him, and he said, oh yeah, and I've got a place which I'm demolishing up in Fawkner. Do you want to have a look at that? And immediately I was like, what do you mean you demolish, like you're getting rid of it? It's like, yeah, you could use that if you want. I said, oh, well, we can't scout this place. Do you mind sending us some photos? And he sent over some photos, and the photos were almost identical to the photos I got from my relatives in Mosul. It was insane. I called up.
It was surreal.
I said, dude, not only do we have a house, it's getting demolished. It's a set. We could do whatever we want with it. And it was just, it all lined up. And even on the day when we did open up, and because before that, when we were designing the shots and how to tell the story, Aaron, my DP, my cinematographer, because he was in lockdown, he taught himself how to use 3D because he was just so bored. So he said, if you send me some floor plans, I could 3D model the entire house, and we could use that and design the shots. And I was like, okay. So we got that, we got the model, and we built the entire house, and we designed the shots. So when we did open up, the whole crew, we went over there, and we already had a plan. But as we were driving there, Daz and Jim, who were in the car, our art director, who was in the car driving the location, it was hard rubbish day. So you've got this very predominant Middle Eastern.
So just so everyone knows, hard rubbish day here in Australia is where on this particular day, everyone could put all the rubbish from their house onto the front footpath, and the local council will come around and take that rubbish away for free, right? So this is all the Melbourne Iraqi community has put all their rubbish onto the front lawn. So we were getting rugs and TVs and old beds and pictures. We dressed the entire house in one day for no money. It was amazing.
It was insane. Incredible. We were driving there, and the guys were like, there's the TV, there's the bed, there's the, it just lined up. I was saying to Daz, I said that, look, I've been praying every single night for help and guidance, and here it is. The
gods are smiling.
So it was that I would say that would be the most challenging thing, trying to find the location. And then obviously the next thing would be trying to find talent, right? Trying to find talent that had acting experience, that would speak the native language. And I mean, we were incredibly lucky. We were incredibly lucky.
Like when we first did the audition for the lead, Brian goes to me, look, I've had a look at all the audition tapes. Please tell me that I'm not crazy. but the first person who auditioned, tell me is she good? And I looked at our, as it turned out, our future lead, Lara's tape, and I, within 30 seconds, went, that's it. She is phenomenally good. Trust me, she's a little bit shy on camera, but she is, that's Grace. And it was phenomenal. And then for us, of course, because we want this to be real and authentic, we got drama coaches in, someone who could speak Assyrian and someone who's a drama coach from, big American movies. When they come to town, they need a drama coach to help everybody with the accents and so forth. So we got Sarah and Greg Saunders in, and they worked online with Lara and also with Basil to help with his Assyrian as well, but also because he's not a professional actor. And we just every week, a couple hours a week, doing rehearsals via Zoom. And I think the proof is in the pudding in regards to what they were able to achieve. And plus they were on set as well, because it was important to have them on set, because there's some big scenes, very emotional scenes. So we wanted them on set to help emotionally, but also for mental health reasons. There's big moments in there. So
yeah,
it was amazing.
And we were extraordinarily lucky. I mean, it's Lara, Basil, Grace were amazing, but to have Johnny on set, who was there when Mosul fell, the moment that it fell, he experienced it firsthand. That was something for me, as a filmmaker. For me, that was like, I need to get very close to you, because you not only you're not only from there, but you experienced it firsthand. And when he was when the scene that he's in, he wasn't acting, he was living it. He was just he just clicked on. And it was funny because he on action, he would be it's almost like we were all transported back to Mosul when he was on set, when he did his thing.
Yeah, Johnny is one of those actors who I would say is, when you call action, is instantly electric. He just bang explodes on camera, and everybody after his first take turned around and went, "Holy cow, this guy's amazing! Where did you find him?"
It was funny because the first time I saw him, he had this this ponytail, and he had this goatee and this leather jacket, and I remember on the rehearsal day, my AD. Cameron leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" And I was like, "Trust me, there is something about this guy." And he went, "Yeah, all right, whatever." And then we yelled action on the rehearsal, and it just went boom. Bang. He was like, "Oh, whoa, this guy's good."
It gave you goosebumps. It was amazing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I definitely know it gave me goosebumps, so I can imagine everyone else also got them as well. Now that we know how it came together, I'd like to dive a bit deeper into the film itself. Grace is essentially a snapshot of life for Assyrians in Mosul. We get a look at the life of a father and his daughter, but of course, we know what happens to them did not happen in isolation, but rather was part of a larger campaign of genocide and ethnic cleansing targeting minorities in Iraq. Why did you choose to tell the story in this way as opposed to a traditional documentary?
Well, firstly, for us, documentaries, some documentaries can be emotive, but for us, the reason why we chose the film is because we wanted to connect. The thing for me, the most important thing for me, I spent my entire life explaining where I'm from. It's Assyrian, Chaldean, and then they'll go, "What does that mean?" And then you're explaining, and they go, "Why is one Assyrian? Why is," and I spent the entire, so one thing for me, and Daz would do the same. He was like, "Well, from Syria." I'm like, "No, man, not from." Anyway, so one of the reasons was to shine a light on that subject matter as well. But the reason why we decided to film is to get audiences that aren't familiar with who we are and who the minorities in Iraq specifically are, is because it's emotive. You need an audience to empathize, to understand who they are. And the best way to do that, I think, when we first spoke, I wanted to make sure that the story is essentially about a father and a daughter. That's it. Everything else surrounds, inevitably surrounds that world. But every human being can relate to you either, you have a father, you have a mother, you have a sibling, you have a relative, you have a loved one. Everyone can connect with that human emotion, right? So that was the most important thing for us. It was to make a film to, like Dave said, to humanize it, to make sure that people, it's not just your regular newscast of, oh, there's a bomb and there's some war and there's some conflict. It's like, no. These are just human beings. They just want to live their lives, wake up in the morning, kick the soccer ball in peace, go have some breakfast, go get some milk. It's just, I wanted to make sure to explore it in a very simple manner. That was the most important thing for us. So that I would say that's the reason for me to not go down the documentary route and go the film route, because I want audiences to understand that these people, our people, are just normal human beings. That's it.
And the thing I think for me too, when you do a drama as opposed to a documentary, if you put all the right elements together, which we were able to do with creating the setting, casting the people, having the story and the words be real, you instantly connect with the characters, you instantly empathize with their story, and you feel it, as opposed to a documentary where I think there's a distance where you watch it as an observer. Whereas if you, with a film, you are empathizing and you're emotionally engaged. And by the end, like I always do, you'll tear up. So, or cry.
You're in it. You're in that world. You're in it. And I get so many questions. I've had questions from so many people about why didn't you explore our culture a bit more? Or why didn't you tell us a bit more about the history? That's not the point. The point is to connect the audience that doesn't know about us or this subject matter or hasn't heard about it. And trust me, there are many people that haven't heard about it, to connect with them emotionally. And then with the feature, you can, I really don't like exposition. So with the feature, we will explore that. We will explain who we are. We'll put all that stuff in, but we'll put it in a way where an audience member can empathize, can connect. And that's what it's about. When you're connecting emotionally, you're listening. But when someone is, throwing facts on you and just drilling you with in 2000 BC and and when you do that, people just get lost in it. But when you put them in a world they can understand and empathize and really feel here, that's where it comes to life.
And also for us, in regards to that, like, we're currently writing Grace into a feature, and as a part of the writing the feature, we need exposition, we need backstory and setting, and all of that beautiful story, thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history, is being carefully sort of woven into that story, because we're working on a 2-hour script, so all of those elements are there. And so that's our plan at the moment, is we are working towards the feature version of this short film, because there are, as I mentioned earlier, there are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of stories of people being victims of what's experienced in this film, and we want to tell those in best way we can, and a feature is the best sort of rounded way of doing this. So it's exciting for us to tell, but at the same time it's heartbreaking that it's there to be told.
Yeah. So everyone out there that got in contact asking that, I got your back. Just bear with me.
I know. But also, circling back to what Brian was saying, and also there's a question here from Jennifer asking about what was the toughest challenge, I think, for us. And, even thinking about it, I still remember when Brian's uncle Basil, who plays the father, the scene of him saying goodbye with his eyes, with his face, with no words. Oh man, I remember the whole crew on that day, we're all in tears. That was a tough scene that day, really tough. So, amazing.
No, I can definitely just say I'm pretty sure I cried throughout the whole movie. So it wasn't just you guys, it was me too.
You can see I'm getting emotional just reenacting it in my head as I'm thinking of Basil on his knees saying goodbye to his daughter. Oh my God. Yeah.
So you guys also made another choice to tell the film in the Assyrian language, an ancient indigenous language still in use that is currently listed as endangered. Can you tell us about the choice and why you felt it was important for Grace to be an Assyrian language film as opposed to English or even Arabic, which would probably cater to broader audiences? Brian, perhaps we could start with you on this one.
So when I was a young boy and I came to Australia, because we're in Baghdad, I predominantly spoke in Arabic, which annoyed some of my family members. You know, they would always say to me, "Makisurat," you know, and so I spoke Arabic as a kid, and then learned, obviously, through school, spoke English, and then English became my world until I got married, and my lovely wife forced me to speak Surat, and that's been 10 years now, and I speak it to her on a regular basis, and it's such an important language to keep alive. I mean, a lot of people are getting in contact, and they're speaking to me in Surat, and I always apologize, because I say to them, I'm really sorry, my Assyrian isn't that strong. It should be stronger. So for me personally, it was also a matter of, I need to do this because for me, I need to make sure that I keep that language alive for my children as well. So that was a very personal choice for me. And then the other main reason is authenticity. I really feel strongly about it. It has to be authentic. It has to be in the language. We are following, you know, an Assyrian Chaldean family through their time, and it has to be in the language, in my opinion. I mean, there are so many now. I think world films are a bit more accepted, with great filmmakers like Bong Joon-ho with Korean, and you know, you know, successful series like Squid Game. Like these foreign films are now being accepted with subtitles. So for us, it's interesting because, and it was a tough decision, because it was, we don't want to narrow down the audience, because if you did it in English, you would widen the audience. But at the same time, it was the fact that the authenticity was much more important to us than doing that. You know, it would inevitably get out there if it was a good film and we believed in it. But authenticity was so important to us, and it's such an, as you know, derives from Aramaic, and that's something that interested Daz as well. And when he knew about that, he was like, "Oh, really? I mean, that's a super old language." And I said, "Yeah, it is. You know, it's so for us, it was, and look, there are so many dialects, there's so many different, you know, things going on with sort of that we were like, look, we've got a 10-minute window. Let's simplify it. Let's just get these actors to speak the language, and then in the feature we can explore, because in the feature, without giving anything away, obviously they travel, and as they travel, they visit these other villages who have different dialects and whatnot. So it's a beautiful language, and for us, for me personally, I wanted to keep it alive, and for us as a team, authenticity was extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, you know, it was tough trying to, you know, teach Lara not only Assyrian but do it with authenticity. But also, there's a question there, I know, you know, asking how we were able to get such wonderful performances out of Lara, who was only 8 or 9 at the time. And I think that speaks volumes of Brian, the director, Lara's performance, and her mother Susan, who were able to convey to her daughter of what they experienced when they escaped Iraq, which was not something that she had ever, as a young girl, had experienced, and just to convey this incredible emotion on screen. It's phenomenal. Like, Lara is a phenomenal actor, and Brian was able to work with her to create beautiful performance. So it was amazing.
Well, I have to say, as an Assyrian, it was really an incredible experience as a viewer to hear the language spoken in this film. So we at the API certainly appreciate the decision. Now, there are various themes and messages packed into this 10-minute film. What do you hope people take away from this film? Dr. McFarlane, perhaps you'd like to start.
Well, I suppose for me, it's the story of a father and daughter, which is a really unique story depiction from a part of the world which is filled with machismo and macho men, and men who you don't expect who completely put all their emotions down here. And to see Basil and his performance as a father who will give his life to protect his daughter is, you know, beautiful and amazing. And what he did on the day that we recorded that scene, where you could just see his emotion sort of doing this on camera, and then the tears fill his eyes. Like, oh, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So for the themes for me of father and daughter, and then of course on a more of a political level, you know, it's humanizing victims of war, and knowing that at the end of what we see on the news of bombs are people, human beings, who just want to live life in peace, no matter what. And some make decisions, and everyone makes tough decisions of, do I stay or do I go? Do I give up everything I've spent my life building to protect what I have? Or do I risk everything and leave it all behind to start a new life where I become a political pariah in another country? And so it's, there's so much in 10 minutes. It's phenomenal. So it's a powerful film that deserves to be made into a film, a feature film.
I think to mirror that, from my perspective, what I want to do is shine a light on what's happening with our people. It's the rapidly decreasing population. You know, the fact that we had such a huge number before you know, the fall of Saddam. From that point up until now, I think that I was reading on your site, I think it was like something like 90% or something. Like the numbers are tragic, and I think for me, it'll be a really sad moment if all our people disappear, you know, out of their homeland. That's something that's you know, really hits home hard. And I guess, you know, with this film, we just want to shine a light on that and really show that that's something that's happening. It's not fake. It's not a game. It's actually happening. Yeah. It's a mass exile in a way. Yeah. I mean, it's as a filmmaker, I don't intend on being political. I want it to be more emotional, and I want people to connect and understand it. But like I said, it's inherently going to be political. It's inherently, you know, that's what that situation is. You can't avoid it. But if we can tell these stories on an emotional level, on a human level, on a level that people will understand and will empathize with, I think that's the most important thing. Everything else comes after that. Because people will ask, who are these people? What language are they speaking? Where are they from? Tell me a bit about them. When they connect with the characters, they connect with the story, everything else follows. And we haven't had that done
ever.
I mean, there are examples out there, and they're amazing. Those people are amazing. Like I really admire them for giving it a crack and really pushing it. But I think for us, it's a matter of taking that and just really going another level. And then when we get to that level, going another level even further than that.
Yeah, we're very lucky that we work with people who make professional film and movies, and we were able to partner with them to make this the best it can be. And that's why it's getting the accolades it deserves internationally at festivals. And so it's a perfect you know, natural course for us to now take that to the next level, which is doing the feature film version of our short. So, you know, we're building an audience, and at the same time building awareness for the Assyrians.
I definitely agree with what's being laid out here, and hopefully the film will continue to reach audiences all over the world. On that note, the film has already received widespread exposure at a great number of international film festivals and has received a number of awards. I'm curious to know, in the early days, did you expect this kind of a recognition for this film?
No, for me, no. For me, it was just important to just tell the story. I think for me, it was just and you know, I always thank Daz for pushing me down there, because I wanted to go somewhere else, because I thought that's who I was, but it wasn't. It was he, you know, very politely pointed out that you've just got, you know, this film has to be you. It has to be a part of you. It has to be, you know, it has to be personal. And, you know, thankfully it's we've got into, it's a great deal of festivals and won some awards. What are we at now? We're at something like
20 festivals.
20 festivals, 5 wins, I think it is. And so
it's amazing.
We're not there yet, but no. we're getting there. We're getting there. We're doing well.
Yeah, no, we made a short film because at the end of the day, we're filmmakers and this is what we love to do. And telling beautiful stories about a father and a daughter is amazing. And we want to make a feature film, and you know, they always say, talk about what you know, talk about what is you, and so hearing Brian talk about his family story, it's epic. I mean, sadly epic, you know, but the things that not only his family did, but when we were making this short film, so you know, all the cast, their families did it. And then when I was, you know, because everyone, it was such a community effort, because they were all donating books and rugs and props and Last Supper images and stuff like that to put everywhere through the house. And you know, I'd sit down and talk with them about, how did you get to Australia, and how did you get to Australia? And it's like phenomenal, the courage to escape, you know, bombardments, like huge bombardments. I can't even imagine bombardments, and it's phenomenal. So yeah, we have a lot of stories to tell in a filmic manner.
It's wonderful that Grace is reaping such accolades, and they are certainly well deserved. I have tons more questions for you both, but I would like to use the remainder of our time to take questions from our attendees. A bunch of questions have already come in. If you'd like to submit the question for our panelists, please use the Q&A feature on Zoom or leave a comment on our Facebook live stream. Our first question is from Dahlia. How did you convey the raw emotions of the story to a young child actor about a time that she would have been a baby/toddler and not fully grasping the danger of the situation?
Yeah, so it's we work with Greg and Sarah, and basically when it comes to working with a child actor and trying to convey.
So 2 seconds. So just so people know, Greg and Sarah are drama coaches who help the cast emotionally connect with the words.
Yes, yeah. So yeah. See, I told you at the beginning. So
I am Brian's, what they call subtitles, or Chirons. You know, he'll talk, and just so everyone who doesn't know, the two names he mentioned are professionals in the field that we call drama coaches, and they are phenomenal. Like it's amazing.
So they work with both Basil and Lara to get them emotionally in that headspace. You've got to be very, obviously being a child actor, you've got to be very careful the way you paint a certain picture, and you know, it's the way you direct them, the way you communicate with them. So it was a matter of you know, when obviously creating a rapport at the beginning. I knew her, she knew me. I worked with her mother as well, who was incredible, Susan. She was outstanding and very supportive, and she would also work with Sarah as well with the language and the way she would convey certain emotions. But to be honest with you, Lara is extremely talented, and I don't think she knows that, but she's very talented and she takes direction really well. And it didn't take a lot for me to kind of get her to a certain moment. You know, I'd say things like to her, like, okay, you're really afraid right now. I need you to take deep breaths in, okay? And I want you to concentrate on just taking those deep breaths, and just in camera, bang, it would be there. You wouldn't have to give her context about, you know, there's some bad men outside. They want to attack you. They want, you know, you don't want to do that, because then you start to really manipulate the performance and turn it into something that's unnatural. And you don't want to do that. You just want to guide. And it was with all of them. You just want to guide it to a certain point where the actor takes it, grasps what you're trying to say, and then expresses it in their own way. And she is just impeccable.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And also too, it's just a natural born talent. Like, it's just, there are people who work very hard and study a lot, and they are great actors. And then there are people who are just naturally born performers. And I think Lara is one of those. So it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I have another question from Jennifer. Thank you for producing such an amazing film. Our community needed this. My question is, what was the most challenging scene to film, and why?
No, so you say, Brian.
Go.
I don't know. Well, look, I think for me, the most challenging scene is probably the scene where Basil says goodbye to his daughter Grace, because, you know, we were very, very mindful and conscious of the fact that both Johnny and Basil have their own experiences with Iraq and leaving Iraq, and we were very careful and respectful of their mental health in regards to being able to do the scenes. And so Basil was so gracious in saying, no, I can do it, because we just do a version, and then we go, okay, let's push a little bit further, let's push a little bit further, and he gave it every single time. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I just remember turning to Patto, and we've both got tears on our face. Phenomenal. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is, like, you can see I'm tearing up now.
Yeah.
It was the toughest scene.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me personally, the reason why that was tough for me from a performance point of view is because Bas is actually my uncle. So to direct my uncle and try to get him emotional when I've known him all my life was complex. To try and get him to just take the fact that he's getting direction from his nephew out of the picture and to put him in an emotional state was very, very complex. So it took many goes to get him there, because he was conscious that behind the monitor, his nephew was there, experiencing and witnessing what was going on. So there was a moment where, and again, for me, I'm not a fan of pushing the audience. I want to present something and I want the audience to then feel it. So it wasn't about tearing up and crying. I'm sorry, I'm going to say, it wasn't that. It was, I want to get him to the point where you could say that he was almost about to crack.
Yeah.
And then I just want to take it. That's it. That's all I want to present. Because for him, for that character, for the father, it's really important to not let her panic. Okay. Something bad is about to happen and he doesn't want her to panic. And he knows that all he wants to say when he holds her, all he wants to say to her is, I love you. And he knows that this is the last time he's going to see his daughter. This is the last time he's going to see his baby. So he's holding her and he wants to say to her that I love you, I'm sorry, and I'll see you soon. But instead of doing that, he holds it and he doesn't want to let it go. He doesn't want her to panic. And she is smart enough and intuitive enough to know what's going on. So there's that beauty in that scene. So to find that moment where it's just enough, like you just presenting enough information to the audience that you know exactly what they both want to do. They both want to hug each other. They both want to tell each other they love each other. But right now, it's a matter of hiding and surviving. So that was definitely the hardest scene to shoot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It really was. So we have a great question from Faith. You could read it in its entirety, but I will try to simplify it for the sake of time. She asks if you've seen the film Mosul that was distributed on Netflix. She notes that Assyrians were absent from the film. She writes, as a fellow Assyrian, I know there's always a certain degree of pressure to authentically represent our people's stories, which are so often ignored and unknown. Is that something that you struggled with? How do you navigate an environment that almost ignores the ethnic dynamics at play?
Well, Mosul, I have seen Mosul on Netflix. Mosul is an action film. It's a genre piece. It's in this day and age, you've just got to kind of. It's so complex because you've got studios and you've got all these other things that come into play. For me personally, that was something that was quite evident. And look, to be honest with you, that's not what we're trying to do. Our film is very different. Our film doesn't explore that at all. Our film explores. I mean, I guess they took something that they thought was an interesting film and they turned it into an action film. I don't know, without kind of having context of what they thought of. Our film doesn't explore. Our film definitely explores, and it's not just Assyrians, Chaldeans. It's every minority that was affected in that, in that moment in time. The Yazidis, and so it's way more complicated than just it's 4 or 5 army dudes trying to do their army thing. Because you've got those army dudes and you've got violence and you've got war, but underneath all of that, you've got just innocent people.
Totally.
And that's where we want to,
and that's the story we want to tell.
Yeah. And hopefully I've answered that question clearly.
Yeah. So I have two questions that are very similar, one from Anonymous and one from Altua. So I'm going to try to combine them both into one. Are there any plans to release a part two or perhaps a sequel? The ending was so emotional and left me wanting to know what happens next in Grace. And Altor said, what's next for you? We know this is just the beginning. Will you share more stories about Assyrians in Iraq and in the diaspora?
Absolutely. So my intention, well, our intention is obviously the feature film. That's the first thing. And the feature film takes, well, doesn't take where the short film kind of left off. It's the short film for us is very much a proof of concept to prove to studios or investors or funding bodies what we can do in the feature film world. So it's got Grace, it's got her father, it explores her uncle much more as well. It explores what happens afterwards. But for me personally, I'd love to, and the thing is, you need the support from the community to do these projects. You really do. You need people who are actually going to back it. And these things cost money. You know, when we did it, we put our own money into it. I mean, Dad's put all of his money into it to kind of get it off the ground. And then we were lucky enough to get, we did a Kickstarter campaign, and the Assyrian Chaldean community in Australia helped us out as well and got us off the ground. And, you know, the agency I work for, they helped us out as well. So these things, it's to do them properly, to do them to a high level where you're competing against all the other incredible films out there, you have to do it. You've got to make sure that you do it the right time, the right place, with the right amount of money. So the feature for us is a very big picture, but also I want to explore documentaries as well. That's something that's really important to me, and where that fits in my, you know, timeline of projects, I'm not sure. Again, it depends on if there are people out there that want to, you know, get these things made. So, and obviously a TV series, Daz and I, and the TV series mainly focuses on from when Saddam took power all the way through to now. So that's also an interesting thing of like what our people experienced during the reign of Saddam, the fall of Saddam, and then onwards. So
it's a multiple timeline story. So, you know, the feature film will deal with an aspect of what's happened, but with the TV series, we want to tell it from the point of view of multiple family members in different decades, showing different historical points in the history of Iraq, for, you know, as a way of telling the spine of our story of this family's progression from the time of Saddam, the time of the US occupation, the time of ISIS, and then to now, which is being in Melbourne or Chicago or Berlin, wherever wherever we set it. We'll probably maybe set it in multiple cities, because there's so many historical points that can be told and should be told. So, you know, I'm just sort of reading someone talking about, you know, 2002, 2003 and what was happening in Baghdad. So that would be something that, you know, we would explore in the TV series, because, you know, we would be doing 10 by 1 hour episodes. And so that's a lot of storytelling. And if we were to do 7 or 8 years of that, then that covers a lot of that aspect of story.
But it really is, and I'll never hit the go button until we've got the right team and and it has to be done in the right way. Like for me, it's really important not to rush, because as soon as you rush, the quality drops, the interest drops, and then you fail. So it really is a matter of surrounding Daz and I with the right team to do it properly, because we want to be at that high level. We want to be up there, like, you know, we want to be up there at the Oscars, accepting it. That's what we want. That's and then shining a light, and then, you know, really going, hey, who are these people? Where are they from? What's the story they want to tell?
Yeah, because television is now the pinnacle of storytelling. Like it's you know, HBO back in the 90s turned TV into filmmaking, like movie filmmaking for television, and now look at the quality. It has to be good in order to compete. It has to be good in order to engage, and, you know, that's what we intend to do. Well, it won't be good, it'll be great.
Absolutely. Netflix, here we come.
Oh my God, I can't wait. In light of your recent experiences with Grace, what is the best piece of advice you could give to the Assyrian community on how we could better support projects like this? This question is from Samantha.
Well, I suppose that's hard, because for us, it's the stages are we write a script and we get funding from the funding bodies here in Australia to help write the script. And then in regards to people who want to contribute small amounts of money that they can afford, I suppose if there's stages where we do a crowd fund, like we did for the short film, that's where that would happen. But, you know, look, if we were to do a feature film and we're filming in Iraq, and then due to safety reasons shooting in Jordan or places like that, you know, we're talking $15 million just to do the feature film. So that's an interesting question. Yeah, crowdfunding is probably the best way, and that would be to help us in the development stage to get the bits and pieces, shoot proof of concepts, which is a little more sort of elements of the story to let financiers know who've got millions of dollars that, hey, this is what we can do, give us all your money.
If there's an audience and there's a backing and there's a community, it's much easier for funding bodies to go, okay, we'll back you, because they know that there's a certain amount of people and we're everywhere in the world, you know, so we can get people to back it and tell our stories. And Daz and I and Jamie, our writer, we catch up on a weekly basis and we shape this story. And let me, like, the feature is, like, I can't wait, man. The feature has some incredible moments. Like you thought, you know, you think the short film is kicking you in the guts. Wait till you see the feature. Like, the feature is going to really explore some incredible moments, and that's super, super exciting. But like I said, to do it in that level, because you could do it on a mediocre level, but then you've lost your opportunity. So it really is a matter of going, you know, and Jamie, our writer, is an incredible writer, you know, and having someone like that interested in the story is very unique. Like the fact that when I called up Daz and went, he wants to do it, he's on board, we just went, ah! Like we were just yelling, like I'm super excited. So we've got the right team. It's just a matter of backing. That's it. It's backing. And if we have the backing, you know, and I want to push as far as, you know, getting some Hollywood name actors and teaching them Assyrian. How incredible would that be? You know, getting them on board and going, okay, here's 6 months worth of Assyrian lessons. Boom, go.
Totally.
That's where, I mean, it might annoy some of our people, like going, oh, well, but hey, you know,
yeah, exactly.
If
it gets it off the ground.
Yeah, well, if you guys need an Assyrian teacher, I could offer my help for free.
Excellent.
All right, so we've reached the end of our scheduled program. Dr. McFarlane, we know you have a meeting to get to. Thanks everyone for your questions. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them tonight. I've really enjoyed our discussion today, but we're going to have to let Brian and Dr. McFarlane get back to their important work. Before we let you go, can you please let us know where people could follow you and keep up with Grace and your future work?
So at the moment, we've got an Instagram and a Twitter account at Grace Short Film. We could you know, share that information with the Assyrian Policy Institute, and that we regularly put up you know, updates of how the film is going and what festivals we're getting into. And once we get into, you know, feature land development, we'll put up those posts as well.
So this is actually a good idea. So if we were to get, because one of the things with the funding bodies is to prove that we have an audience, to prove that an audience exists for us to get funding to do the film. So if we're able to get a number of followers for Grace the Short Film on Insta in high tens of thousands of supporter levels of followers, that will allow us to prove to the funding body, hey, we've got 100,000 people following Grace the Short Film on Instagram. There's an audience there. So that will be an amazing first step to helping us get money to make this into a film. So that would be great.
A lot of these social media kind of big social media like comedy teams or whatever, they tend to get funding like that because the funding bodies go, well, you've got 1 million people already on your, you know, so that makes sense. So for us, I know we're out there. And I know there's a whole bunch of us. So if we get together and we go, we could show them exactly like that. So we can show, hey, this is a story. It's a story about, you know, Syrian Chaldeans living in Iraq, and this is them, and they want this story. They want this story to be told. That's going to get, you know, that'll you know, that'll help our case.
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. I think they're coming up now. So
Yeah.
Anything you could do to support would be amazing. So thank you so much for your time, and please, we are so proud and honoured to be bringing this story to you, and we can't wait to be bringing heaps more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time and
organising.
we're honoured. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Bye. Have a
Yes,
wonderful
bye.
day. Or
You too,
day,
thank you.
have a wonderful
Bye.
morning.
It's sunny outside.
So,
All good.
yeah.
See ya. Thank
See
you.
ya. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.